Hello, 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 party people. Happy full moon in Leo. I am loving this energy right now. I don't know about y'all, but I'm fucking feeling it and all systems go. And so I felt inspired to just launch into the second episode of this brand new podcast, Secrets of a Witch, by me, Sabrina Scott, spiritual teacher, tarot reader, witch, artist, writer, blah, blah, blah. And just babble a bit about how amazing the energy is for February of 2023 in general. The amazing full moon in this moment, and how we can kind of harness this energy moving forward as the full moon is not over yet. If you know your witchy vibes, if you know the moon, you will know that you still got a little bit of time to harness the strength and power of this amazing moment. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about how I've chosen to harness this full moon, since it might give y'all some inspiration for some things that you could do in the next full moon. So, after many months of prep, of thinking, of overthinking, of delays, of having a surgery, I finally launched my brand new clothing line today for the full moon, and I also decided to start sharing this podcast publicly today, also for the full moon. Even though the first episode was recorded a few weeks ago, I didn't actually tell anybody or add the podcast to any of the RSS feeds anywhere. And so today I decided, you know what? It's a day of action. It's a day of brightness. It's a day of luminosity, shining, blooming, and just sharing with the world these two quite big commitments and creations: a clothing line and a podcast. And so it's so interesting because my own card for myself for February of this year, this month, is the Magician. And I feel like that card encapsulates the astrology of this moment so perfectly. And I'm not an astrologer, so I'm not going to get too deep into it. But astrologically right now, nothing is in your way. Nothing is in our way. There's no retrogrades. There's nothing complicated and difficult going on. There's no planets fighting with each other. Everything is smooth sailing, flowing easily, and just abundantly creative. This moment feels so ripe with potential. It feels like a time when our dreams can really blossom. We just have to plant that seed. And I know seed planting metaphors get a little bit tired and boring, but this really is the time to think about it, especially since January was overshadowed by quite a significant few weeks of Mercury in retrograde. And I know we can't blame everything for Mercury in retrograde. I would never do that. But retrogrades, especially Mercury in retrograde, it's such a time of contemplation, of reflection, of rest and stillness. And when we move out of that, we can just catapult ourselves into a space of action, doing, flowing. Because sometimes overthinking really isn't going to serve us. Actually, I think most of the time overthinking isn't going to serve us. And I say that as someone who really loves to think thoughts and go deep philosophically and read books and write. And I'm working on finishing a PhD. So y'all know I love those big thoughts. But in terms of keeping our creative spark alive and sharing, oh my God, like with the world who we are, sharing our ideas, sharing our vitality with the world. This is such a time to connect with that. Now that we've gotten over that January hangover, whatever that looked like for you, it's the time to renew and refresh and rebirth ourselves from ourselves. And I think that for me is such a big energy of this exact moment, that we can't wait for permission from someone else. We can't wait for someone else to birth us into the world. If you're listening to this, then that has already happened. That ship has sailed. And so it is time to embrace the fact that we are in a constant process of rebirthing ourselves, for ourselves, to ourselves. And if I'm being honest, I was feeling a little bit uninspired the last few years, really. I was feeling a bit lethargic. I was feeling afraid with the pandemic. I didn't really create anything new in 2021 and 2022. I guess I released my second book, that's true. So maybe I did create something new, but I wasn't creating quite as much as I used to in terms of volume, in terms of zest, passion, vitality, inspiration. Yeah, I wrote a book, but I felt like my spark wasn't quite as bright as it had been. And with the astrology of the past few years, the shifting energies of the past few years, and maybe you felt like this too, and I don't think it is just the pandemic. I think it's also the astrology, the energies that are swirling around in the universe, and the lessons that each year brings, the challenges that each year asks us to rise to and overcome and transcend, so that we can then create ourselves and our lives anew, renewing our intention to ourselves, our vitality every day. That's a challenge. That's a challenge. And as an artist, a writer, a creative person, a witch, and what are witches but not creative people? Isn't witchcraft really about creation? To be a witch and to be feeling a little bit uninspired, it feels just gray. And so what I had to do is basically to kick my ass into gear and ride the waves of that Mercury retrograde, which I'm hoping y'all did too back in January, into this present moment of this full moon in Leo, February. So back to this moment. I'd like to invite you to think about creation. Not just the creation of art and creation of a clothing line like I just launched today, or creation of a podcast, which I also just launched today, but also creation of every day of your life, creation of every moment of the life that you actually want to be living. What do you need to do every day to be that person that you want to be? That is creation too. And my computer just agreed. Gotta love that when technology decides to chime in at that exact right moment. Just for a little punctuation, just for a little emphasis. And so everything is collaborative. But I find sometimes people forget that our number one collaborator is ourselves. So bringing this back to creating our lives. Life is an art form. Living well is an art form. Art is life. Life is art. And wherever you go, there you are. And so whatever you feel called to create, whether that is a podcast, a clothing line, a child. Maybe you want to get pregnant this year. I don't know. Whether that is just a deeper sense of health and wellness and happiness by increasing your greens intake. I don't know. I'm trying to have more green smoothies, so that's my personal goal, health and wellness wise. So I speak from experience. But that stuff is creative. That stuff, those little actions create this giant kind of rolling snowball that keeps getting bigger and bigger. And that snowball becomes us, becomes our life. And so these little things like what smoothies we make for ourselves, what food we eat, how many walks we go on, what type of people we welcome into our lives, how we speak to ourselves. All of that stuff might not seem creative, but ultimately it really is. It's incredibly creative. All of that contributes to the creative act of living and the artistic product that is our daily life. And so when we work in conjunction with the moon phases, by which I mean when we act in accordance with the energies of the moon or the stars or whatever, as I did by launching things on the full moon, we can add a little bit more energy, a little bit more zest to what it is we're creating. And so I ask you, on this beautiful Leo full moon, what parts of yourself do you want to shine more? What parts of yourself do you want to enlarge? What parts of yourself do you want to share more with others? What artistic or creative habits do you want to spend more time on? Really take some time to think about it. And on this full moon, I encourage you to make a commitment to yourself to start whatever that is. And tell somebody about it. I only launched my clothing line on today because I told other people that I was going to do it. And so I could not chicken out. I had to set a deadline. And so maybe your deadline is you're going to do ABC whatever thing by the next full moon. Tell somebody about it. And be accountable to yourself and the words you've spoken into the world. That's where the magic really lies. So I leave you with that today, my beautiful friends, listening to this second episode of the Secrets of a Witch podcast with me, Sabrina Scott, witchy teacher, spiritual consultant, tarot reader, artist, writer, etc. You can check out my brand new clothing line at shopsabrinamscott.com. You can creep my website at sabrinamscott.com and you can see some of my courses there. You can also buy a tarot reading on that website. You can also creep my Instagram at sabrinamscott. So that's that for Secrets of a Witch for today. If you are listening and you enjoy this, please rate and review. Give me a good rating, please. I would love that. I'm new to this world of podcasts and I suck at asking for happy reviews. So here we are. And on the topic of that, actually, I'm really happy to say that my 2 books are very well reviewed. So if you have not read them yet, they are called Witch Body. And my second book is called Curse and Cure. Happy full moon, friends. Bye.